Hello and welcome to another episode of Child Please Podcast. I am Regina Weathersby.
And I'm Erica Simpson.
And we are excited today. We have a special guest that I'm going to let Erica introduce to us.
Okay.
Who we got, Erica?
Today we have Pastor Dr. Victor Lewis. He is my pastor at First Baptist Church Fairfield. He's become a friend, he's a father, he's a husband, he's all the above. And I'm excited to have him here with us today. So today we're
Amen.
going to talk about a topic of maternal health that sometimes people kind of shy away from, but I think it's pertinent to have the support from the faith-based community.
hmm
So I'm gonna let Pastor Lewis tell us just a little bit about himself before we jump into it.
Yes, I'm Victor Lewis. I am again pastor of First Baptist Fairfield. I am a double board certified chaplain in the Brookwood Baptist Health System, and also the interim director for Spiritual Care Association for the Grandview Hospital, and I've had the wonderful privilege of going. I attended Miles and Selma and Andersonville, several um, universities. I teach at Birmingham Baptist Bible College, Birmingham Theological Seminary, Selma University. And so I've been married for almost 18 years, and got two wonderful boys, and they guess keep me busy. And I am indeed excited about being able to be a part of this podcast today. Pastoring now over almost 30 years. So just hopefully I can be able to add some content to the podcast today.
Well, welcome. We're gonna jump right in. So, Pastor Lewis, when you hear the phrase Black maternal health, what comes to mind, and why should faith communities care about this issue?
Well, I believe that it is indeed important as we kind of think about, um, what's going on in that world, because I think it is important to look at it because it kind of speaks about the emotional strain and stress um, that Black women are facing, and how men can be able to connect and not leave them out on the limb. It is important for us to meet women, our sisters, if you will, at the very point of their need, not to allow them to walk in isolation, but to walk in partnership. And we're not supposed to be, or they're not supposed to be behind, but we are supposed to be beside each other. So I think it is indeed important how there is a sense of partnership, prayer, and productivity that happens together in the midst of pregnancy, because the joy is double. And so, with that joy being double, whatever the journey is, because it is a journey, and the with that journey and partnership, it comes. And it happens together in the area of partnership, and why spirituality and emotional support is so important, because no man is an island entire to himself. We're all a piece of a whole. And so I just think that it is so indeed important to bring another awareness from a spiritual aspect and emotional aspect to this important issue.
And I'm glad you said that. You brought up, as fathers, Black fathers, because June holds a lot of different remembrances. We have Father's Day, we have Juneteenth, and we have Men's Health Month in June as well. So I'm glad you touched on that. One question, and it can be kind of a tricky question I wanted to ask. Being that Black maternal health has been described as one of the most pressing health crises affecting Black women today, yet many churches, you don't hear that topic discussed often. Why do you think that is? And how could we, as the faith community, change that?
One of the things I think the reason why it's so silent is because that it's a subject that is so sensitive. The church has become uh, a master of sweeping things up under the rug and being silent in the pulpit. This is a silent subject because I just think that we don't know how to intelligently address those issues. It is silent because we really don't know how to handle it, and we don't know how to meet people at the point of their need. I just think that the reason why it's such a silent issue because we don't know how to effectively engage the community that is around us. We kind of allow it to go. We push them off on healthcare professionals, on psychologists. We push them off on sociologists. But it is imperative that the Bible kind of speaks to it, where He tells us to cast all of our cares upon Him, and that we are our brother's keeper, and that the strong should bear the infirmities of the weak. And so we can't shy away from it. But the reason why I think it's become such a silent issue is because we don't really know how to effectively communicate that to our culture and to our people. We just used to pushing it away to other professionals and not allowing the pulpit and the Word of God to speak to that in our own personal lives. So that's kind of I think that's where we are on that and why that happens and why it's continuing to happen.
And just to add a thought to that, I think sometimes too, when people have experiences that aren't the outcome that they hope for,
Hmm.
I think sometimes there's a shame that's connected to it. And so I
Hmm.
think a lot of times, even in church, people don't really share what their experience is. So you may not know. So you think about a woman that may have had an early miscarriage.
Hmm.
You may not know that unless she communicates that. And so I think sometimes people may carry a shame or just a very deep hurt, and it's a vulnerable thing to
Hmm.
have to like share that. And so I think just creating spaces, even in church, whether it be a small group, support group, whatever the case may be, so that when people do have those experiences, they have somewhere they can take it that feels safe.
And again, I want to jump back in on that because I think it's so important that you hit the nail on the head that we have to respond by way of encouragement and practical support and emotional support, and the church the reason why I believe that sometimes the reason why the church is not responding to it because we don't have the ministry, the mentality to be able to be that support system. We talk about how important it is to cast all of our cares and our burdens on the Lord, but we are our brother's keeper, and we must be able to learn how to share that support by way of having seminars, by way of having workshops, by way of engaging the community, which is, I would believe, to be one of the reasons why the church is on a decline, is because we refuse to speak to those issues that's happening not only in the congregation but also in the community as well. So again, I just want to jump in on that because I just think that what you just said was awesome because it's important for us to have the Bible talks about how faith without works is dead. So we got to be able to show up. It's really called the ministry of presence. It is the compassion and service that we must provide to others. And one thing that Jesus Christ did was He knelt down and washed the disciples' feet. And sometimes the reason why we don't want to provide that sense of service because sometimes it can become messy and it can become difficult in those kind of conversations. But that's where the healing takes place.
Right, right.
And I think also to kind of not point the blame on the church, we as Black women kind of have to shift the narrative of being the strong Black woman. And I feel
Mm,
like you have a lot of women walking around physically strong, but they are emotionally broken and vulnerable. And
Mm,
so I feel like sometimes being able, as the woman needing help, being able to go into these environments, whether it's the church or even your doctor, and being open and honest about the help that you do need as well.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, Yeah, so navigating that in the area of dealing with pregnancy and recovery, because a female body goes through so much, and working in a hospital, and being on the women's unit is sometimes have um, being able to see that side of it, and what they go through. I think is that's a recovery process. Mentally as well as socially and spiritually as well. And we have to be able to become all things to all men. There's only so much that the hospital can do. It's only so much that social workers and therapists can do. But the question is, what is it that the church can do in the area or the faith community to provide some level of support while our sister's going through a challenging time.
And also, I would like to see, and I hope I don't put my foot in my mouth because Pastor Lewis don't come talking about no, but being able to support women throughout the trajectory. Like I said, I feel like when we look at maternal health, we only see like the pregnant woman. But
Hmm.
you have people. I spoke with a lady about a month ago. Um, we kind of grew up together. Her dad pastors a church, and just the emotional toll has been taken on her because she's struggling with infertility. She cannot conceive.
Hmm.
And being able to minister to those people as well, because like I said, maternal health is beyond just being pregnant and having the baby. That's something that people deal with for a lifetime. So just being able to meet the needs holistically of everyone.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think that there is a sense of insensitivity when I mean, Eric, you brought up this almost it's a wound, it's a stress when a woman who desires to have child and struggle with infertility, what how do they approach Mother's Day, and how do they approach different times of the year and out shopping? And again, I think that that's another area where the church can speak to or provide, if you will, like a small group of individuals who can be able to bounce that off of and have a safe environment to share and explain their feelings about it, and not be threatened by the environment or hurt by the environment. Because some of the time, the people that we go to for help is the same ones that turn around and hurt us, and they're not doing it they're not doing it intentionally, but that's what's happening. And so that's why we have to create a environment of healing in so many different areas.
I think too, just realizing that, just like Erica said, most times we see a pregnant body and we think maternal health. But for those who have had significant losses or struggle with infertility or whatever the case may be, just also keeping in mind that there could be women who are experiencing an internal conflict. I know for me, having experienced the loss of children, my faith took a hit.
Hmm.
It's like,
Hmm.
Lord, I love you. I know you're good, but I just experienced this loss, and I don't know what to do with these feelings that I'm feeling. And it's hard in your humanness to not feel like, what in the world, is going on. And so I think just also keeping in mind that there can be an internal conflict, and that it can be people who have faith but still struggle with feelings.
Regina, when you said that in being a clinical chaplain for over 10 years now, one of the people when they see me, oftentimes it's not all the time, good. And sometimes when I'm called or paged to the nursery or dealing in the women's center, oftentimes it's either one extreme to or another. One is to congratulate and to welcome a child into the world. But then there's a other extreme is that there's been some complications with the child coming into the world, and oftentimes the child doesn't make it. And so I oftentimes be right there with the parents while they're holding the child, taking the child, and the child is taking their final breath. And sometimes um, we nothing that we can say that can change the situation. Oftentimes it's just showing up and being there.
Yeah.
And so many people don't know how to handle that stage and that area in life. They think they just got to say something, or it's a part of our DNA to try to fix it. And so there's some situation we just can't fix. People just can't fix. But we have to live in that moment. We have to comfort those who are grieving. We have to stand beside and be with those who are suffering, even if they're suffering in silence, and allow them to have that safe space to feel what they're feeling, whether it is sadness or them being mad at God. Regina, you had said, your faith took a hit. Sometimes we have to be okay with people being, and I'm not saying that you are, but sometimes people say, "Well, I'm angry at God because I prayed for this child, and you took the child away." And so sometimes we have to provide that safe space for them to be able to do that, that they may be able to have this coping mechanism. That is nothing that they will get over, but it's something that they have to live with, and it's the living with times that will provide strength and encouragement and um, appropriate grieving methods and methodologies that will help people for the days ahead. And the church is quick to say, that I got over it, you can get over it. I made it, and you can make it. We're quick to say time heals all wounds. That's the biggest lie that we've heard, because time doesn't heal all wounds. It just doesn't. But we do know that we have someone who will be with us through the wounds of our life. And that's where we have to be able to live in that comfortable space, is knowing that, hey, I'm wounded, but I'm still surviving. One of my favorite books is The Wounded Healer. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but it's a wonderful book because it talks about how we live with our wounds, and we live with our tragedies, and we live with our grief, by Edward Weiner, that talks about how important it is for us to live with those wounds. And so that's the flip side of it. We want to provide healing, but the reality is that in life sometimes we just have to live with those wounds.
Yeah. And real quick before we close, being that it is Father's Day month and Men's Health Month, I also want to speak real quick to another side of maternal health that we often don't address is when during childbirth or labor, the mother passes and you have fathers raising the babies that survive. That's a part of maternal health that we don't really talk about a lot. But
Mhm.
I just think, creating spaces for those men who have now had to become mom and dad over, what I'm saying, due to tragedy.
Mhm.
Um, that's something else I want to speak to real quick before we close out.
Well, I think that as fathers, one of the misnomers is that people think that we can be mothers, and then vice versa on Mother's Day. There's some single women who say, "Well, I have to be the mother and the father." Well, there's no way we can
Right.
do that, and that's the same thing for men. We cannot be the mother. I understand what they mean when they say that. We can only be who we are, and that is we're the father, we're the man, and so we must create that space of honesty. We must create that space of mental health. We must create that space of emotional. We must be that mentor in the opportunity of being with our children. And so as we approach Father's Day, as we deal with this month of for June, I think it's important that we share our faith, that we share our struggles, that we share our support, that we don't hide from our hurt, that we don't hide from our struggle. I think transparency is what is key, and our children will appreciate that, and those that is around us will appreciate that as well. So we must reflect upon this theme of moving forward and asking constantly, how can I help you? How can I pray for you? As people are trying to help us, we must be willing to help others, and together we will be able to reflect the heart of Jesus Christ as men of God and as fathers in this world that oftentimes is dangerous to develop and children in these difficult times. But this is not something that we turn on or off, but we mentor and we father 24/7, and so that's where we are in these caring relationships.
I wanna. It's one thing you said a minute ago, Pastor. I have to go back to it just because it's on my mind. I know sometimes in situations people don't know what to say, but just being present. You talked about being at the hospital, having to be, in the NICU or whatever, when parents are experiencing maybe the loss of a child or some significant issues. And so I will say that it is important to just be present sometimes. Sometimes that's just what's needed, and it's not necessarily words that's needed. And I just say for me, what I needed was for people to be present, and I needed for people to be praying,
Hmm.
because out of all of the things that people said to me, there wasn't words from people that really helped me push forward. At some point, it was me having a conversation with God and a word that I got from Him that caused me to be able to move forward. But I know that I was in a position to be able to hear because people were praying for me
Hmm.
and people were there with me, and they didn't just let me go into this dark place.
Hmm.
And so I think just even in that support, when words, when we're at a loss for what to say or how to say it, just being present with people and praying for people so that they can get what they need. I think it's super important. So I just kind of had to go back to that because I really appreciate you saying that. Because I think sometimes people, because they feel like they need to say something, the words that they say end up being more damaging than they are
Hmm.
good, because they try
Hmm.
to justify something that you sometimes you can't explain it.
Right.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's gonna take God Himself to kind of open your eyes
Hmm.
to see a situation, and it's not something that a person can explain to you. And so I think it's just important to just know that your presence sometimes is enough.
Well, yeah, Regina, you said it right. When we call it the ministry of presence, and ministry means to meet the need of others, and sometimes what they need is not proclamation, but presence and patience. Because in due time, that the person that is dealing with pain, the mother that is dealing with pain, whatever's going on in the pregnancy, or if there's a transition in the pregnancy, or if there's some difficulty dealing with after the baby has arrived. Our responsibility, or anyone's responsibility, is to be there, so that when there becomes an opportunity for one to open up and to be transparent, then that support group is there. And so we have to live in that sacred space to allow them to cope and handle, and to provide the opportunity for them to be able to share when that time comes. And so we possess faith, but we also must practice that faith, and sometimes we just have to just be there, and it's through that time that compassion and service is rendered. And this is a part, I believe, the responsibility of the faith community is just learning how the ministry of presence is so powerful.
So good.
Mhm. Well, we thank you so much, Pastor Lewis, for being here with us today and just dropping some wisdom on us this morning. We appreciate you, and we appreciate what you do on an ongoing basis in those hospitals where you are there supporting and showing the love of God like in real time for people who are in very delicate and vulnerable situations. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate everyone for joining in and watching. And until next time,
Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of the conversation.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.